Hello and welcome to another episode of Oh So Curious, and we are back with a jam-packed show. We've got so much to talk about today, from the news that Skydance has now bought Paramount, to the news that there's a new Agatha All Along trailer out there. I mean, that in and of itself is news. I guess whatever. We'll talk about the trailer. We also have the F1 trailer from over the weekend, that Brad Pitt movie that Joseph Kosinski, the director of Top Gun Maverick, is coming out with soon. We have got lots more beyond that. Superman photos. There's more filming going on in Cleveland today. We're going to dive into those photos. There was an injury on set. We're going to look into that as well. John is here with us. Angelina is here with us. Bridget is here with us to talk about Despicable Me 4, MaXXXine, as well as, of course, the new Beverly Hills Cop movie. So to get into that and lots more, let's get the show started. Well, hello there. How are you guys doing? Or how are you ladies doing? I'm the only guy on screen. I'm not used to the balance is off. Anyway, well, let's just dive into the show. Angelina, you haven't been on the show in has it been a couple of weeks, or were you on last week? Am I misremembering something?
You were absolutely. You've just iced me out of your memory, Dan.
Damn.
I think
Okay. It
Bridget
just
was
seems
in
like it's
here
been a
last
long
week.
time. I
Yeah.
feel like you know what it is, because we did a show on a Friday, which is unusual for us, and then
Yeah.
we didn't do a show all of last week. So it feels like it's been 2 weeks. That's probably what it is. I mean, I've just been used to seeing John here, which I mean, John will be here in a little bit.
Dan
So
just
and
missed us.
I,
That's what happened,
I
Bridget.
really did. I
Yeah.
really did. You know, after a
Figured.
while, you gotta get tired of John's face. But Angelina, how's your day going? He's taking this out of 10. Don't
Savage!
worry.
John is crying off screen right now, everybody. My week is good. It's a crazy week. I'm flying to Denver tomorrow night for 26 hours, turning it around and coming back and filming a commercial here. There's lots going on in LA. If you guys haven't, we have a lot to talk about here today. Things are back.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody took last week off and now it's crazy.
It's a big day in Hollywood, that's for sure. And Bridget, you're out on the East Coast. How's that looking for you? How's the weather down where you are?
Oh, it is hot in the South, and I forgot that. But yeah, it's also here for quick work turnaround, so very busy. But this always happens. I feel like 4th of July just gets crazy. But yeah, it's been good so far, and I'll be back in LA next week.
Yeah. Well, before we get back to LA, we got to talk about the movies. And there were 3 big movies last week. So it was 4th of July weekend. There was, in fact, Despicable Me got released on a Wednesday, as well as, I believe, MaXXXine and Beverly Hills Cop. I think they also put out on the same day. So each movie could have a 5-day holiday weekend. I personally had to go back into work on Friday, which I did not like. But nonetheless, we're talking about Despicable Me 4. It's the 4th movie in the franchise, as the number implies. Actually, it's the 4th movie in the mainline franchise. It's the 6th overall movie, because they've done 2 Minion films. So Bridget, you saw this. I didn't have a chance to watch the whole movie myself, but you watched the whole movie. And I'm wondering not only what your thoughts are about the film, but also it's like, does this movie kind of feel repetitive at this point? Like, it seems like there isn't a ton of ground left to explore, like, because the parts that I watched seemed like they were just redoing a lot of the same gags. But what are your thoughts about the film?
Yeah, I mean, I think you pretty much guessed it. Expected going into it as well that probably wasn't going to be great. I was kind of hoping there's like a slight chance it could be like a really great, funny plot, but then I remembered it's Despicable Me. And personally, I've never really liked any of the movies. I actually took my younger sister to the theaters to watch this because she likes the franchise, but I don't know how. I don't know. I just don't like Gru. I don't like any of it. I don't even like the Minions, and they just drive me crazy to watch. I mean, I get it. I feel like if you're a little kid, this would be really fun. But I feel like anyone older than 5, I just don't see the appeal personally. And so, yeah, this storyline and everything wasn't that creative, not that much different than any of the other movies. I think I've only actually seen the first two. Haven't seen any Minions movies, but yeah, it's just it is not something I would like to watch even as a parent. I don't think I'd like to watch this. If I had to go to the theater and watch it, I would feel like it's just a big waste of time.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a movie that again, I have not seen the whole film, so I will, kind of say that up front. But the amount of the part that I did get to see, it's it's sort of like this franchise is settled into a nice groove at this point where they're just sort of doing their thing. But it doesn't feel like, even though they try to reinvent the franchise in some ways, like there's a gag where 4 of the minions kind of become superheroes almost, but it's one of those things where you start to wonder, like, because they had spun off the minions into their own franchise, like how do you find the balance? It's also the fact that they keep adding new characters with each new movie. So eventually, I think this is the first Despicable Me movie where I felt like the movie was a bit crowded. Like there were too many characters.
I think you're right. It's like, because there's all of like the people from the first one that then I feel like when there's like a return of that villain, it's a little bit more continuous. But when there's always like a new guy, it's like, will this ever end? And like, I don't know, personally for me, like I loved the Shrek movies. Those were like my bread and butter growing up. And I think there's only 4 of those. So I don't know. I'm like, wow, how are we already at 4 Despicable Me? It's like, I feel like the first wasn't even that good to get so many sequels. Shrek, I mean, the first 2, I think are perfection. So I'm like, I'm more forgiving of the 3rd and the 4th, but I just don't know how we've gotten this far. And I really hope there won't be a 5th.
And a lot of the reviews are kind of sort of mirroring what you say. Like a lot of the critic reviews, you're just like, look, it's heartwarming, it's cute, it's the same thing over again. We love Steve Carell, but like, why? And then there's like some harsher critic reviews that are essentially along the lines of like, even though it has a pretty decent Rotten Tomatoes and critic score in the 80s. So I feel like that's a little surprising for a 4th movie, but a lot of people are just like,
actually, I don't know. Well, the critic score is in 52%. It's the lowest of the whole franchise.
What am I looking at then? Oh,
I don't know if you're looking.
No, I looked at the first one.
Yeah, well, the first one was universally acclaimed and beloved, but this one, the critic score is sitting at 52%, and the audience score is sitting at 90%. Now, obviously, the 90% audience score
are all little kids.
Is a big deal, right? But 52% is, I think, off by 4 percentage points from the previous low, which I think was the first Minions movie had like a 56% score. So when you look at the critic consensus, it says it's fast-paced, teeming with slapstick gags. Despicable Me is as overstuffed as a piñata, but full of enough candy to give audiences an enjoyable sugar rush. That's very middling at best. So, I mean,
Despicable
look, ultimately,
Me
though,
is the latest messily passable iteration of the deliriously successful franchise. I was like, yeah, that sounds about right.
This is a franchise that has averaged up until this point almost $1 billion per movie, to the point where I think when we talked about like the last time we talked about it on the show, looking ahead, we looked at the numbers, and I believe the number we came up with was like the previous 5 movies combined had come in at a total of like $4.5 odd billion, basically $5 billion, and each movie over the course of the last 4 or 5 of them, I think, except for the first one or maybe the first 2, every movie since has made like $1 billion at the box office. And we're currently sitting at a time where Inside Out 2 has gone on to make over $1 billion in record time. And this movie has gone off to a really good start at 4th of July weekend as well. In fact, we have a video here that sort of covers not only just the critics' reaction, but a little bit of the success of this movie. So let's take a quick look at that, and then on the other side, we'll discuss a little bit about the box office success of the movie, despite the fact that the critics don't seem to be liking the movie all that much.
You guys seen Despicable Me?
Yes.
The kids loved it. Together, these guys just dominated the box office. That's right. The Mega Minions crushed the holiday weekend at the movies, coming in at number 1. You!
Look up.
So as you can see there, the movie has gone off to one hell of a start. I think, Angelina, when you look at the domestic box office, this movie has started off to I think over $120 million over the course of the 5 days from Wednesday, July 4th, all the way to the weekend, which allowed it to kick Inside Out to off the top of the box office for the weekend. But when you look at the global numbers, it's coming in at like 230 million. So it almost doubled this domestic number abroad and coming in for almost $250 million just in its opening 5-6 days. So do you think this movie has a chance to, like its predecessors, make $1 billion at the box office?
No, especially not with reviews like this so quickly. I think this is the initial hype, right? But coming off of Inside Out 2, so many parents are going to be like, oh, I don't know if my kid's going to like this. I feel like only parents, well, no, it's definitely not going to hit $1 billion. That's my thought process. But could it possibly hit 5, 6, 7, just based off of kids begging their parents to take them again, it being summertime? Looking ahead, we don't have a whole lot more cartoon sort of movies for children coming out in the next few weeks. So this might be a great option for kids over the next month or two with summer.
Yeah, I mean, and it's already off to a great start. So from a financial standpoint, I mean, as long as people are going back to see it, hopefully will do well enough for itself. I mean, even if it gets past 500 million, I think it will be probably more than profitable. But Bridget, to kind of like wrap this review up, I wanted to come back to you because you went and saw the movie. Of all the new things that they have done with this film, like the Tribe, whether it's spoofing superheroes, Gentle Minions, which is like in the first act of the movie, there were some really cool cameos in the film, which I did enjoy. Do you think this is a movie that's gonna keep the franchise going, like the hot streak that it was on? And is this a movie that you would recommend to somebody go watch in a movie theater, or would you rather just skip it and check it out when it comes out on Peacock?
Yeah, definitely. If like you really do want to see it, I would wait, save your dollars. And honestly, just because it's not that different really than the first couple, you could just watch the first two again. Honestly, it's you're not missing that much, I don't think. Definitely wait. If you want to, wait till it's out on Peacock and then save some bucks.
That's fair. I mean, hey, look, I'm a big fan of the franchise. I like that they brought Will Ferrell into this. So I'm going to want to go watch the rest of the movie that I haven't seen. But at the end of the day, going off of your recommendation, it looks like if you guys are out there, you may want to tread lightly unless this is like a family fare thing. You've got kids, you want to go out and watch this, and you've already seen Inside Out 2, then this might be worth checking out. So let us know in the comments below what you think about it. Get into the live chat and let us know there what you think about the movie, if you have seen it already, or if you haven't seen it, did Bridget's review get you more excited or less excited about the film itself? There's also, of course, the like button. Do hit that because we do enjoy your likes and dislikes. If you hated this review, then you can also just hit the dislike button. We just love the interaction. But moving on the other side of this break, we're going to talk about the news in Hollywood that Paramount has just entered into a deal with Skydance to be basically merged together, and there's $8 billion in the air here as part of this deal. But the deal is got some conditions behind it, which means it's not quite across the line. There's like a 45-day period where somebody else can kind of swoop in instead of Skydance. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what else is going on in Hollywood. There was an Agatha All Along trailer for the Marvel Studios TV series that dropped for Disney Plus today. We're going to get into that. But before we do that, let's take a quick look at speaking of animated movies, one of the greatest and certainly my favorite animated movie of all time, The Lion King, which is going to be getting a re-release in movie theaters near you for its 30th anniversary. So here at Also Curious, we'd love to celebrate the movies because we do this for the love of movies. So let's take a quick look back at, quite frankly, in my opinion, the best animated movie of all time, The Lion King. All right, welcome back to the show, and we have John joining us. So
Unfortunately,
I just want to apologize.
Sorry.
I just want to apologize for doing you dirty earlier because that was not cool of me to say.
I mean, it's pretty much known that I'm the ugliest person on the Oh So Curious show,
God.
so it's totally cool.
That's
I get
not
it.
true
I'm
at
cool.
all. That's not true at all.
Cool.
I mean,
That's
but
fine.
hey, now that you're here, I want to bring you in and well, how has your day been? How is it going?
I've been.
See how he totally like pivoted that? He's like, gotta get out of here.
It's cool. I've had a good day. I slept in late. I had a big lunch, dinner kind of thing. And just kind of getting ready to go on a trip for tomorrow. But outside of that, I'm doing good, doing pretty good. So, hell yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I mean it's been one heck of a Monday. Let's just say that it's been a very busy Monday too. There's a lot going on in the world of Hollywood and whether it's movies or TV shows or just the business of Hollywood itself. So as we do in the show, we usually start the show off with this, but we kind of wanted to review Despicable Me off the top. So now it's time to look at the news.
It doesn't seem to matter what I do. I'm always number 2.
All right, Mr. I need to paint my abs on to get nominated. You don't see Robert Downey doing that.
You're kidding.
You're
kidding. I can't open the envelope without the...
Warner Brothers is heading back into the Matrix with a new movie in the works.
What the hell is even that? Okay, I'll shout it from the rooftops. I want to be Bruce Wayne. I like that. And you're gonna love me. What the world needs now? Give me a hand up. Nope, I'm actually okay. Thank you very much. Oh, wow. Wow.
Why does he look so sad?
David, why are you so sad?
I don't know if Superman should be sad. Not today, because it is David Corenswet's birthday. We're going to get into that a little bit later. But to start off the news segment, I wanted to do a quick trailer reaction, right? So I was literally going through like, hey, what's going on in the world of Hollywood today? And it comes across on Hollywood Reporter that they released the Agatha All Along trailer. So I was like, you know what? Let me take a look. And so honestly, I had a bit of a flat reaction to it myself, but that's also because I didn't particularly enjoy her character in WandaVision. I didn't think it was the best part of the show. But I want to throw it out to you guys. Like, John, you watched the trailer for Agatha All Along. What did you think about it?
It looks like, I mean, WandaVision was a really good show up until the last episode where it just completely blew its foot off. By trying to make Wanda look like a good guy, even though she literally kidnapped an entire town of people and tortured them. But whatever. They'll never know what she sacrificed, the 2 children that never fucking existed in the first place. But I never really liked Agatha that much either. It was like the only reason she got popular was because the song was popular, and I felt that was kind of lame. Although I do like Catherine Hahn as an actress; she's a very good actress.
And
I'm sure she's gonna
incredible.
Fucking sell the hell out of this show. As well as, I mean, you have Aubrey Plaza, you have her, and you have Patti LuPone. They're all legends and modern legends, old school legends in their own right. So it's like, okay, cool, good for them. I gave up everything Marvel ever since I watched Love and Thunder. So I just have no interest. And it looks like one of those shows that it's like, oh, we're going to give you like a darker show. We're going to try and be dark. And then it just ends up not being that at all. And it's just kind of the same old Marvel crap. And that's what I feel like that's what it's like. The thing is, like, if I was still a fan, I would have maybe bought into this. But it just looks like it's like if you took like Hocus Pocus and Legion and dog shit and put it in a blender, and this is
okay.
What
Leave the
comes
dog
out.
Shit out of it. Jesus.
It's just like, I mean, that's what all Marvel is nowadays. It's all just garbage.
Honestly, I think it looks really good. But what actually got me most with this trailer is that it actually confirms that Wanda is dead. I mean, obviously, does that mean anything?
Right.
But that was the first thing that was noted, right? Because at the end, of
Doctor Strange.
Yeah, we know that she's dead, but it's never confirmed, right? We keep assuming that she's, but I feel like this is reaffirming
it's
that
sort of
she is,
implied.
in fact, dead.
Yeah.
Well, you literally see her name on the card.
Yeah, but like in comics, nobody ever stays dead. I mean, Barry Allen was dead for 23 years, but they still brought him back.
Not
so,
Wanda.
you know.
By the way, I did like.
Yeah, so I think that's the most important.
I wanted to just point out, I noticed like they got Joe Locke in this, and I've been watching like Heartstopper on Netflix. So like I was like, oh, I recognize him. He was the only other actor I recognized in the show other than, Catherine Hahn. So I just wanted to do a quick shout out. But
yeah, he's gonna be
good on John for recognizing Patti LuPone. She's like a musical theater goddess.
My sister is a Broadway fucking nerd. If I didn't know Patti LuPone, I wouldn't be sitting here right now, and I would be 6 feet under. So, and plus, I did see her on Broadway as well.
That also supports your theory about this being more hocus pocus, like a little theatrical instead of like a real down to earth, because the casting is leaning more towards this like theatrical fun sort of casting. Even with Aubrey Plaza, like she's more of like a comedy queen at this point, right? Like she's not like a hardcore Marvel moment. Wanda is now so OP. If the MCU brings her back, she'll defeat every bad guy in seconds.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
I'm really, when you guys made the comparison of like, this looks like Hocus Pocus times, what was the like Legion almost. It definitely
Legion,
feels
but
like
that's a disgrace to Legion.
That's actually an insult to Legion. You're right.
It's a major, like Legion is hands down, and maybe I'll get hate for this, maybe I'll not. Legion is the best comic book show we've ever gotten or will ever get. Nothing is ever going to top Legion as a comic book show easily. Daredevil's up there, but nothing will ever.
I agree, dude. Legion is a show that every week and a new episode would come out, and I would literally every week my jaw would be on the floor. And I'm like not just like it's a great show. I literally was asking myself the question, what did I just watch? Every week with Legion. And they somehow managed to do that with not just one season, but with every episode of every season. I mean, I felt like that show.
I don't even know what show you guys are talking about. I've never seen it before.
It was an X-Men show.
It was on. Was it on FX? I think. And Dan Stevens.
On FX. It was about Professor X's son David, who like is trying to deal with his powers, and it's like goes through. It's very surreal, impressionist sort of like very weird. Kind of a little Lynchian, but not like totally. It was made by the guy who showruns Fargo, Noah Hawley. He's also going to be doing an Alien show. I think he's working on that now. So he has the clout for it, and I'm excited for that Alien show. And he just did such an exemplary job with that show. Like, it was so good. And that was like, to me, that was the ending. That was like the perfect finale for the Fox X-Men. Because the way that was it, like that was like really the last thing they made, because New Mutants was filmed before that, even though it came out after. So the way that show ends is like the perfect ending for the Fox X-Men. The way everything just kind of works as an ending. So I won't say anything, but if you haven't watched Legion, please, for the love of God, watch Legion. It's such a great show.
It. After you watch Normal People.
Okay, fair. That's a fair deal, right,
I
John?
don't even know what that is. So.
Okay, well, let me just kind of to wrap this story up. Are you guys more excited or less excited about the show after watching the trailer?
I denounced Marvel, so I'm not going to be watching it.
I feel like it's going to come out around a spoopy time in which I need a spoopy show, and I'm going to try to watch at least 1 or 2 episodes. Yes. Okay. I'm more excited to see if they come out with Jenna Ortega Wednesday. I'm hoping they come out with a Wednesday too before Halloween, because this is supposed to come out in spoopy season 2, so we'll see.
I mean, the other thing is, like, you see stuff in this trailer that to me, so like, I think for me, I'm cautiously pessimistic. You know, people usually say cautiously optimistic. I'm cautiously pessimistic because Moon Knight had a lot of similar elements in terms of magic and the weirdness of the MCU, and then ultimately, I don't think they really hit the landing right on that one. It's just
No,
they
they
seem to get
didn't.
off to a good start, and then things kind of fall apart. Plus, there's way too much hocus pocus in this trailer for me to truly like take it as anything more. It definitely feels like it's just another episode that's not gonna like mean much. Like, basically, it's not appointment television. If you miss this show, you're not gonna miss anything in the larger like story of the MCU, which is why ultimately it kind of lost my interest. But you know what didn't lose my interest? In fact, what has got my interest all day long is the story that Paramount has finally found a buyer. So I wanted to kind of quickly give you guys a little bit of background on exactly the mechanics of what's going on, because it's a little complicated if you read into the articles. It's all over the trades. Deadline is where we're looking at now. David Ellison Skydance has been in negotiation with Sherry Redstone, who's from the Redstone family, that have owned Paramount for years and really made the company into what it is today. So the goal was Sherry Redstone wanted to sell her stake in Paramount, which she owns through National Amusements as her company. Now, ultimately, what ended up happening here is after lots of negotiations and Sony coming in with Apollo Management, a bunch of other buyers, Warner Brothers potentially being interested, we finally got a deal agreed upon over the weekend. This was developing on Friday, and then over the weekend, things really hit where we found out that David Ellison's company, Skydance, who have been financing most of Paramount's theatrical slate over the last decade or so. So if you're watching one of those Mission Impossible movies, if you watch Top Gun Maverick, basically anything Tom Cruise has done for Paramount and most other Paramount movies, you'll see the Skydance logo show up before the Paramount logo or after the Paramount logo. That's this company. And they have now made an $8 billion investment to buy Paramount through National Amusements, which is the Sherry Redstone company. Sherry Redstone owns the majority of the voting power within Paramount, even though her actual equity stake in Paramount is a minority stake. Her shares are like a special higher tier shares. So even though the equity value is in the minority, she held the majority voting power, which means whoever controls her shares, which will now be Skydance, basically controls Paramount for all intents and purposes. So I know that when Sony was going to buy them for $26 billion, they were going to buy everything, whereas here Skydance is only buying the part that National Amusements controlled. So Sherry Redstone, the Redstone company, is going to basically exit and income Skydance. Now, John, I wanted to start with you here. The big thing that David Ellison highlighted in a call to investors over the weekend, or I think it might have been this morning, he mentioned that they're not going to be number crunching. They're not going to be bean counting, or they're not going to be bean counters. I think it was his quote. And instead, they're going to lead with a creative first approach. So I wanted to ask you about that and just as your perspective on it, because theater owners are happier that Sony's not going to buy and split Paramount into 100 different pieces.
Yeah.
Whereas now, Skydance, they have a creative first approach, the kind of approach that got Disney to where it was before their recent, fall from grace, making billion-dollar movies, the MCU, Star Wars, Pixar. That's the kind of approach that it seems like David Ellison is going to lead with. So what are your thoughts on this deal and the outlook that Skydance have for the company moving forward?
I know some people aren't going to be happy with this, but the thing is, if with the whole Skydance deal, if nothing obviously comes up in the next 45 days, as you mentioned, it is better. It's the lesser of two evils, I feel, because if you broke up Paramount, like this institution that's been around for over 100 years, that would just be not good. And it's just like Sony owning something else. It's like, that's the last thing we want. It would be like Disney buying something else. It's just, I'd rather, Skydance seems to be more on the up and up, because Skydance is relatively new from what I'm aware of. I don't know how old Skydance is, but they're
not like 100 years old, but they have been around for a while.
They're not as much of a legacy. Yeah,
they don't, and so I think they kind of might be on the up and up, especially if this is the case. Because now they have.
Skydance was founded in 2006, so it's only
it's very new. So it's
years old.
a little bit more than it's almost 20 years old. So I think that's. Yeah, no beginners, and if theaters are happy, it feels like this is just I'm not going to say a great or amazing. It's just good that it's like, yeah, it's owned by somebody else, but at least Paramount gets to like stay an institution rather than just like half of the branches get closed, half of them get sold off to something
I
else, and
also
then become little
think
things.
it's
Like would have
so
happened.
much better. I just think it's so much better than Cherry Redstone, who has made it so apparent that she doesn't really want anything to do with the company.
Yeah, she's been looking for an exit strategy for
literally
a long time.
since what? Basically since she inherited it. So it's better to have a rep that owns so many shares in a company, obviously, that her father was the primary majority owner of. It's better that she's out. She goes and lives her life, and then we get the new legacy and what Paramount has to bring. I think we've watched so many companies crash and burn because these sort of like legacy shareholders inherit and want nothing to do with it, and they run it into the ground, right? Like how many people's Nepo baby says like
and by the way, I wanted to kind of restate something that I said earlier. The quote about not a bean counter or creative first was from Dean Devlin, filmmaker who's worked with Roland Emmerich in the 90s on those Godzilla, Stargate, Independence Day movies. And that was his description of David Ellison, who's now going to be basically the new owner of this combined company. And you're right. I think the idea that Cherry Redstone had wanted to kind of shepherd the legacy of her father, but not necessarily take on the responsibility long term. She has been working on an opportunity, a way to essentially step out. And Skydance, I think of all the potential bidders, they know Paramount inside and out very well, especially compared to somebody like Sony coming in. They would have to do a lot of work to kind of figure out, and you know, the company ethos would have been different. They would have looked at it from the perspective of how do we fit this into Sony. Whereas when Skydance comes in, they've already got this very deeply integrated working relationship with Paramount over the years. So there's a lot of, in the article, they're saying cost synergies, which usually means layoffs, and that is not going to be good because but it's a part of mergers and acquisitions. Disney laid off a lot of people after they bought Fox. So this isn't something new, but what I do want to ask you about, Angelina, is overall Paramount has been hemorrhaging cash in recent years, and that's the reason why they've been trying to find a solution, to the point where the office of the CEO, with the three CEOs, the trio that they've had in place for the last few months, they were in the process of selling off BET recently, which I think is a deal that's still ongoing because the current merger is not going to take into effect until 2025. So there's still a strategy to try to divest some assets and take the money to kind of help pay down the debts. Do you think that with David Ellison, who's got all the money in the world, and Skydance coming in and injecting $8 billion, is that going to help the creatives sort of focus on the creative and not have to worry about cutting costs? And do you think that's a good thing for a studio that most recently, A Quiet Place day one opened #1 at the box office? So they're clearly, they know what they're doing and the Yellowstone universe is another one of those franchises. CBS has been a top broadcast network for 16 years. What do you think about the idea that this is a company that's now going to lead with creative first and not necessarily have to worry about, cutting a lot more of the pieces, whether it's brands or entire studio divisions?
I mean, I definitely, at the end of the day, businesses only continue to work when they're bringing income in. So obviously things on the inside need to change if they're consistently losing money. However, I do think a big part of that is we have noticed so many companies pushing for quantity over quality, and everyone is paying that price. And so as things change, they have some time to really figure out what works. Obviously, $8 billion is still finite. It is a good amount of money. It's a big number, but it is a finite number. And
it's not what Disney paid for Fox.
Exactly. And so things internally are going to have to shift. I mean, no company can continue to take loss after loss after loss, but $8 billion buys them some time. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, absolutely it does. And then the other big thing that I mentioned at the very start of this segment is the idea that this transaction has some closing conditions. They have a 45-day period where another bidder can come in and potentially outbid Skydance and kind of enter into a similar agreement with Paramount for maybe more than $8 billion, let's say. But if that doesn't happen, then this deal becomes finalized, and then it's going to close next year. Until then, the trio of CEOs have mentioned that it's basically going to be business as usual. So we're not going to be, going anywhere in terms of drastic changes overnight. This is going to be something that will take effect over the course of the next 12 months. So if you are an employee of Paramount, if you are somebody who's just a fan of Tom Cruise movies, or if you're looking forward to, the next season or the last season, I suppose, of Yellowstone, season 5B, then, this is big news, because this means that all of those brands and those, iconic franchises will stay under the same umbrella, because that seems to be what Skydance wants to do here. They don't want to break things up and sell pieces off. They want to grow the company as it exists today. And that's always good news, because we don't want these old, legacy studios to just die out, kind of like what happened with 20th Century Fox when Disney bought it. Speaking of studios and expensive movies, there was a movie that supposedly cost $300 million, which is Jerry Bruckheimer sort of denied that rumor. But F1, which was, I think, one of the movies that got a special waiver to continue filming during the strikes last year with Brad Pitt, it finally put out its first teaser trailer. And this is an Apple original film that Warner Brothers, won the bidding war to get the distribution rights to. You guys saw the trailer. What are your thoughts on it? Angelina? Did you get a chance to look through this trailer?
I didn't get a chance to see this trailer, no.
Yeah, because I watched this, by the way, I watched this trailer and I was just amazed by how they're putting you in the mindset of the driver. Some of the cinematography and the shots, it very much gave me the sense of it's not a POV shot, but it feels like you're in the car, you're in the Formula One race car, and you're at a Grand Prix, and it felt much more high energy than what was there was Gran Turismo, right? Was the movie, John, that came out last year, which was another racing movie. So this one, it feels different, even versus Ford. When you compare it to Ford versus Ferrari, the cinematography feels more high energy. Like the trailer that I watched wasn't on the Warner Brothers account. I found the trailer on the Formula One account. So this is obviously an officially licensed thing.
Yeah. I just realized something.
Yeah.
I feel like this is almost history repeating itself. Because you know how Tom Cruise, the famous Tom Cruise, did Top Gun. Okay, Top Gun, classic movie.
Yep.
And then he essentially did Top Gun, but with NASCAR, which was Days of Thunder. Now it feels like Joseph Kosinski's doing the same thing. He directed Top Gun Maverick. And now it looks like he's doing Top Gun Maverick, but with Formula One racing. So it's just I think that's just an interesting parallel. That's all. Because when I was watching this, I'm getting Top Gun Maverick vibes of that heart-pounding, edge of your seat action, but with cars instead of fighting.
Exactly. That's exactly the vibe that I got, and it does it in a way where I think Gran Turismo tried to do some similar stuff last year, but it just, when you look at, Gran Turismo was an entertaining movie. And I remember we talked about it on here, and I mentioned the cinematography was unique and different. But then when you look at this trailer, I'm like, this is next level. In terms of the excitement of it, it really pulls you in. And there are shots here which I have no idea how real they are or not. Supposedly, Brad Pitt did do some of his own driving in this movie. I don't know how much of that is true, or how much of it was what ended up getting used in the movie, or there's probably some movie magic happening. But it looks exciting. I don't know much about the story based on this teaser trailer, but that's not the point of a teaser trailer in the first place. The point of a teaser trailer is to get you excited for the movie. And I know for me, it got me really hyped for the film, because it's also set to the tune of "We Will Rock You" by the Queen. And so I'm just like, you know what? I can just watch this trailer
makes me
on
want
repeat.
to go watch this. I was like, I am such a big, when they have the right soundtrack, it makes such a huge difference. It just gets you in it. And I mean, "We Will Rock You" is a classic. I'm also excited to see Brad Pitt, the old classics, really coming back, really nailing down. We have Orlando Bloom, who's making a resurgence. Tom Cruise came back with Top Gun Maverick and then another Mission Impossible. We have Brad Pitt coming back. I feel like all of the old early 2000s, late 90s actors are making like this huge resurgence and like really keeping their careers going after a little bit of a lull for all of them. So it's exciting to see them like coming back in action. We loved them on our screens when I was young, and I love them on my screens now.
I mean, and this movie has some, all-star talent. Lewis Hamilton is in this movie. Right there on your screen, you see Damson Idris. You have Carrie Condon and Condon. I don't know how to pronounce that correctly. Condon. There's Sarah Niles. There's just, Javier Bardem. I saw him. I'm like, okay, all right. They got Javier Bardem in this movie. Whenever Javier Bardem shows up in a movie, I'm like, okay, it's gonna be a good movie. Like, I don't think I've seen a bad movie with him in it ever. Like, I can't really tell you, like, in the last time.
I didn't love him in The New Little Mermaid, but yes, continue.
I mean, nobody.
Well, to be fair, I've not watched the live action Little Mermaid, so I guess my streak is alive because of that. But like shots like this, you see this here, like whether this is CGI or whether this is real or whether it's a combination of the two, it is exciting to see this kind of action photography, because when you have franchises like the Fast and the Furious basically going to space, you want to maybe watch a movie where they actually show you some real racing going on. And
what's even crazier about these particular F1 movies is knowing how fast these cars go. In order to fake it and in order to film it, they have to be operating at a speed that is like otherworldly. And so I almost wonder if these F1 movies are coming out later because we really just didn't have the technology. Like, obviously F1 has really come into its own in the last like 10 years, but I feel like there was a delay in sort of tracking these movies. And part of me does wonder if we just like technologically didn't have the equipment to do it, because these cars are going like 230 miles an hour. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And it's not like NASCAR where they're just going in a loop. There's like a whole track. So there's twists and turns, and the whole dynamic of the race it's incredible. F1 Formula One is one of the most popular sports in the world. It's got a huge fan base, and it's not just one of those things that's popular in Europe or South America or just in the United States and North America or just in Asia or Australia. Formula One is global. This movie will have an incredible audience to appeal to. And even though Apple has had some bad luck with their movies recently with Argyle and Napoleon, I have a feeling that this movie might kind of like turn that on its head, John, because so far it looks great. I mean, another trailer, more of a story trailer, might tell us that different. And of course, the movie itself might, say something else entirely. But this teaser trailer gets me excited. Did it get you excited to go see the movie?
Talking about it made me a little bit more excited, because when I watch it, I'm like, this looks kind of generic. It just kind of looks like, it's just, driving. It kind of looks too reminiscent of Ford versus Ferrari, which I really liked. But honestly, if it's Joseph Kosinski, I've liked most of his movies. I loved Maverick. I liked Tron Legacy before it was cool. I know everybody hated that movie when it came out, but I liked it.
I had fun with it. It
watched it.
It was good.
But I thought that was a fun time, and I'm still fucking pissed that they essentially cock teased Joseph Kosinski for fucking years about a Tron 3, and now finally, when he's off to do another movie, they finally managed to make a Tron 3, and it's gonna be with Jared Leto. It's like all three Tron Legacy fans were so stoked for years to finally get Tron 3, and now we're fucking getting it from some guy. And it's like with Jared Leto. It's like, all right, it's Troning time.
It's Troning time. Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. But hey, F1, this movie looks exciting. I think between this trailer and the Agatha All Along trailer, this was definitely the much better trailer. So Angelina, you should definitely go check it out, because I mean, just looking at the screenshots alone, it looks exciting enough. But if you watch it to the tune of "We Will Rock You," it just sends it home for me.
It's gonna make it,
yeah. Sure. Now we do have some more somber news to kind of get through, and this happened over the weekend, and it was just something that I was shocked to hear, because anytime you see something like this happen, it is shocking, no matter how old or young somebody might have been. But producer John Landau, who's been essentially James Cameron's right-hand man all the way from Titanic through to the Avatar films, He's been right there, right beside him all this time. He passed away at the age of 63, and he's one of the most iconic producers in the history of Hollywood, one of the most successful producers in the history of Hollywood. Even before he was working with James Cameron, he did movies like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. He was an Oscar winner. Dick Tracy. He was also an executive at 20th Century Fox back in the day before the sale to Disney, and he was a big part of shepherding the franchise of Avatar over even at Disney. So now, we find ourselves in a world where, for the first time in like 3 decades, James Cameron does not really have his producing partner next to him, and it's just. I mean, I was shocked. I was kind of like sad for. I'm like, it's just it's this kind of thing doesn't sit well, no matter who it is. But especially when you have somebody like John Landau, who was such a big influence on all of our movie loving lives. Like, it's Angelina, what are your thoughts on John Landau? Which of his movies do you most remember and will forever be a part of your favorites?
I mean, obviously Avatar is huge. Titanic. I mean Titanic is like he, you know what I mean? But he's
probably one of the greatest
so many of
romance movies of all time, quite frankly.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, how do you ask me that question when he was like producing on Titanic? You know what I mean?
Honestly, out of the ones that are mentioned there, I would say the best is probably either Last of the Mohicans or True Lies. Out of the ones that are mentioned, because I don't know every
True
one
Lies,
of his,
dude.
True Lies is so
Lies
underrated.
so
Like, that's
True
such a
Lies.
great
So good.
Cameron movie. It's
Yeah.
so good. And then Last of the Mohicans, I would say it's one of Michael Mann's more underrated features, because like Heat gets a lot of love, like Manhunter, all the Thief usually get more love than Last of the Mohicans, but Last of the Mohicans is really fucking good. I was actually at one of the filming locations when I went on a class trip, so that was fun. But
Nice.
but yeah, Die Hard 2 is good. Mrs. Doubtfire is classic. I have never seen Dick Tracy, but
Mrs.
I mean
Doubtfire.
Titanic,
Wow.
it exists. It exists.
I mean, we talk about James Cameron having, what is it, like at one point he had 3 out of the top 5 highest grossing movies of all time, right? Even today, he's got Titanic, which I think still lives very much in the top 10 and probably even in the top 5. And then he's got the 2 Avatar movies that kind of live in the top 3, right? Then there's Avengers Endgame sort of in number 2, but then you've got Avatar, the 2009, the original Avatar, and then Avatar: The Way of Water at number 3. So kind of sandwiched in between are the Avengers. And so James Cameron obviously deserves credit for a lot of the work he did on those movies, but so does John Landau. The job of a producer in Hollywood is so critical to a movie's potential, all the way from ideation all the way to distribution, and then what you do with the franchise if it spawns a franchise like Avatar did. And John Landau was just such an incredible part of not only the career of James Cameron but also Leonardo DiCaprio, who issued a statement which I think, again, one of the most well-respected actors in Hollywood today. He mentioned that John was an incredibly kind, wise, and empathetic soul who wanted to create nothing but a positive impact on anyone or anything approached. His legacy and leadership will live on forever. My condolences are with his entire family. Rest in peace. You will be deeply missed. I mean, and that's just like just well put. And he wasn't the only one. Kate Winslet, of course, again, John Landau had such a huge effect on her career from an early age, and the kindness and best of men, she said, since the age of 20, he knew her. And of course, she's worked in a lot of his movies, from Titanic to Sense and Sensibility and Heavenly Creatures. So there's just an outpouring of love from all across Hollywood. Even James Cameron, I think I pulled up his message again. Just the two guys collaborated, for the majority of their professional careers, and he feels like he is mourning a part of himself, which I can imagine. Like these 2 guys have been producing partners for decades, and the Avatar family grieves the loss of our friend and leader, John Landau, said James Cameron. His zany humor, personal magnetism, great generosity of spirit, and fierce will have held the center of our Avatar universe for almost 2 decades. There are more Avatar movies on the way, and of course, I can't wait to see where the story goes next and what other new technology James Gunn brings our way. But John Landau was a critical and crucial part of helping James Cameron realize his vision for all those years. my condolences, our condolences from the show to John Landau, his friends, and his family. He will be remembered as one of the greatest producers that Hollywood ever produced. And, we look forward to seeing where James Cameron and the Avatar franchise that John Landau shepherded for years goes next. So with that, guys, we do have the Superman story to talk about a little bit here. This has been just the biggest thing on this channel, at least over the last, few weeks. John and I have been here every day on DC Daily talking about it. We will have an episode of DC Daily coming up soon after the show ends, and we will dive into the pictures from today's shoot in Cleveland. But I did want to briefly ask you guys about what might have been happening over the weekend when they sent out this rush call for casting extras for today's shoot, and they wanted to do this for Cleveland. Angelina, when you get like a rush call for getting cast as an extra, what does that mean to you? And generally speaking, like, what does it look like to be an extra on a set of a movie of this scale when you're outside and you may have hundreds of other extras out there?
I don't do those anymore. I was like, ew.
Well, we all gotta start somewhere. I'm just saying.
Sorry.
It's
It was also the way you framed it as if I'm like doing that regularly.
No. I don't want to make that implication. I'm just saying, like, we all like.
Sorry. 10 out of 10 would never.
Yeah.
But it probably means that as a rush call, they either added the scene super last minute, they shifted the schedule due to something else, or this just wasn't slated to film today, or maybe a bunch of people got sick and had to call out last minute. But it could be really any one of those things. Usually when there's a rush call, if there hadn't been a call that went out before, especially such a public casting call with such a like a project that's really on the DL, I honestly feel like maybe they switched the scenes around or the shooting schedule and then had to send out like a rush casting and somebody dropped the NDA because there really should be no reason. Like, I remember I was working on this one set probably the very last time I did background. Actually, it was like a year and a half ago, and it was for a Marvel production, and I had no idea what it was until I was there on set. Like, they used a different name, they used a different this, they used like different, they really don't want you to know. They don't want you to know what it is, right? And so the fact that this was so publicly sort of like strewn about kind of tells me that maybe something happened and something got switched around. But I also heard somebody talk about maybe somebody got injured. So they might have just had to reshift around the shooting schedule.
We're gonna get into that because that did happen, but that was from today's shoot. By the way, the word, the title, the code title that they're using for this is Genesis. This was from the casting company that got sent out I think a week or so ago.
Y'all just spilling all of Superman's tea.
I'm just saying they were also meant to film in Cincinnati on July 8th, which is today, and today they're filming in Cleveland instead. So you might be right that they might have had a change in plans because even though they were going to have some police officers that they wanted to cast as extras for July 8th in Cincinnati, it looks like they do have police officers, out there on the set. But today, instead of being in Cincinnati, they are at they're at the Detroit Superior Bridge. That's where we find them today on the set of this movie. So, John, you look at these pictures. I know we're going to go through them in much more detail later on, but you can see James Gunn is out there. He's working with these guys. He's working with background. He's working with extras. But what we do know is so far, at least in the day, when we're doing the show right now, it might change later, but the photos that we have seen, it doesn't include any of the principal actors. Like, it doesn't include any of the lead cast members. So usually in situations like that, you might have a second unit director out there, but it looks like James Gunn is out there directing the action. What do you think they're filming today? And of course, one of the things in that casting call, the rush casting call, was have a car. You're going to sit in a car. It's going to be something that you do probably the whole day, in 10 to 12 hours. And it looks like, they've got a bunch of luggage stuffed in this particular car. What do you think is going on here?
So I think this is like a big traffic scene. It's either like maybe like an establishing shot, or it's like prepping for a big action sequence. Like, how like sometimes in like a Transformers movie, like you have like that big action sequence and then they blow up all the cars and all that shit. So I feel like this is going to be a big bridge action scene sort of thing. And I remember specifically when we were looking at this the other day, we had it was like, you're not the extra, your car is the extra, and they specifically asked for no red or white cars.
Exactly.
So I'm thinking that and I made the assumption like, oh, they don't want red so that it's mimicking maybe Superman's cape, maybe he flies over them, and white is maybe for the Terrifics, maybe they fly over so not to clash with the colors. Again, that's just me guessing, but why they would do that. But yeah, it seems like it's going to be like a big opening establishing shot or like a big action scene is what I
It's also what I noticed about these pictures, and we're going to dive into them in more detail on DCU Daily, but you see a lot of these cars have luggage either on the inside or on the outside, and then this is the person who got into a car accident, one of the stuntmen, and then we'll dive into that a little bit later. But here you can see the police is directing traffic. They're like, go, 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 and all of these people seem to have some sort of luggage with them. I know that we had speculated the other time a few weeks ago that this might have something to do with basically a plane crash.
The end
maybe.
of the world. The end
like
of the world.
Is it because we know the Daily Planet crew was stepping out of something like in one of the first days of filming in Cleveland. John, is that what's going on here?
It might be. It could be like sort of that like big sort of thing. So I don't know. Like it's I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be like as like huge. I think they're just getting so many. I think they said 10 to 12 hours because it's like they're probably getting a shit ton of like establishing shots, and maybe they're getting both. Maybe they're doing like a big establishing shot like for the beginning of the movie, and then like later on they'll like reconvene the cars to make it like not look the same, and then they'll do a big action scene. That could also be like they're just doing everything at once, like it is for like blocking for certain days and whatnot. So yeah, I think that could be the case. And I mean, they are running from something, so that's still also definitely something as well.
Yeah, and we were gonna, again, I keep saying it, we're definitely gonna try to put the pieces together with the other aspects of the shoot in Cleveland later on. When we do a full DCU daily, we're gonna dive into these photos, kind of like figure out how these pieces fit together. I'm personally very intrigued by the idea that you've got people here with luggage. Like, you don't often see people just dragging big pieces of luggage across a bridge. Not to mention a lot of the cars that you see in the scene. You have people just like with cars full of luggage, like whether it's an evacuation or some kind of something crashed, and it just feels like it kind of reminds me of what was going on in was it the Batman Begins? Like, remember when there's like a whole evacuation order from what's the part of the Gotham that they called it, like the one that didn't exist in the second two movies, but like they were basically the slums of Gotham, but they were like closing the bridges.
Crime Row, maybe
something like that.
Something like that.
It was. It seems like, obviously it's probably not that, but it seems very similar to it. There are some other images from the shoot, and there's more coming in because it looks like there still might be, I think they might have wrapped up filming by now, but this started early in the day, and these are long 10 to 12 hour days. So we'll get into that. We will speculate like a little bit, as we always do, fan theories as well. We already have Ron in the chat suggesting what Audrey Arjona might be a good Wonder Woman. We'll talk about that. Jorge Mobe, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He or she mentions that DC might finally beat the MCU with the Superman movie, and you know what? The hype is certainly there for it. So I'm all in for that. And yeah, Will Reeves' character is going to be in this movie. Yeah, you guys are right about that. He did film a cameo. I think it was last week, right? Will Reeves was on set filming a cameo. We saw him dab it up with James Gunn. So there's definitely that. It made the news. That was the biggest news of the day for the movie. However, that's not the only big thing Superman related happening today. I came across this on X when I was trying to just look for other pieces of DC news. It's a good place to find some news. Then you just got to figure out where the source of news is coming from. Exactly. Today is Superman's birthday. Not Superman the character, but Superman the actor, David Corenswet. He's celebrating his 31st birthday today.
Yes.
And of course that, maybe that explains why we didn't really see him out there on the bridge, at least not of the pictures you've got so far, because we have seen Superman on set.
I'm sorry, that first comment is just pissing me off right fucking below.
Which one?
The dark Messia on Twitter.
Right there.
Yeah.
Flop section.
Oh, fuck that guy. Like, go fuck yourself. And you know what? 2 out of 3 of those movies were good. So money doesn't mean fucking everything, but fuck off. Anyway.
I'm
just saying, like, fuck you. Blue Beetle was good, and the Shazam, I don't care what anybody says. That's my second favorite DCEU movie. I don't give a fuck. That was great. Both Captain Marvel movies were fucking fantastic. And yes, I call him Captain Marvel because that's the real Captain Marvel. And fucking Carol Danvers and Marvel and Phyla-Vell and all the other 17 different Captain Marvel characters at Marvel, they can all suck these nuts. The real Captain Marvel is fucking Billy Batson, and I'm not going to take anything else. Just saying. I only call it Shazam because that's the name of the movie. He's really Captain Marvel, so fuck you. The real one, so shut it.
By the way, this is a drone video of the bridge that they're shooting on today, the Detroit Superior Bridge. It looks pretty exciting to see that. Again, you're getting that Midwest heartland of America kind of a vibe with the city. Not like basically, it's not like this metropolis is going to just look like another New York City. But it just seemed like that's what the look was when they were doing this for the DCEU. They were like, there's 2 New Yorks across the bay from each other. One of them is Gotham, one of them is Metropolis. This version of Metropolis feels a little more timeless and certainly a lot closer to what we get to see in the comics, and definitely has that Art Deco look. And this bridge definitely matches that look as well. So some great shots here. Again, behind the scenes looks. We're going to continue to dive into that more when we do a full DCU Daily episode later. But Angelina, welcome back into the show. Did you get a chance to wish happy birthday to David Corenswet today? Oh, you're on mute.
You're muted.
You gotta unmute yourself, Angelina. There.
Hilarious. I was talking shit and I forgot to unmute myself. That's what happened.
That's what you get. It's karma.
I was like, no, I'm not as much of a fangirl as you guys are. As we know here on Oh So Curious, I'm probably the least nerdy of all the nerds. But with that being said, he's a beautiful man. Happy birthday, David. Happy birthday.
I don't think, I'm gonna say I think you're a nerd. You're just nerds for other things that we aren't nerds for. Let's go with it, because everybody here's a nerd. Just a nerd for different things.
I just said I'm the least nerdy.
No, but you could be a super nerd for something else. That's entirely possible, just in a different way. That's all.
Yeah, y'all haven't tried Built Bars. These things are delicious.
Very, very good segue, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Interesting. Well, hey, it is Superman's birthday today, so that's great to see that. Even if he's getting a day off, then I hope David Corenswet is out there enjoying his time, and then I'm sure he'll be back on set before you know it. But they are shooting a pretty big sequence out in Cleveland, and we'll dive into that further later on in the show. But right now, let's get back to the movie reviews. We've got lots and lots of them to do. Up next, we're going to dive into the latest Eddie Murphy movie. As part of his big revival, he seems, he did what, Coming to America 2, which was a terrible film. But now we've got another classic Eddie Murphy franchise that is making it back to our screens. This one ended up on Netflix, so you didn't have to go to a movie theater to watch it. It is Beverly Hills. I said that weird. Beverly Hills Cop. Axel Foley. It's out there. John, you saw it, and we're gonna talk about it. But before we do that, let's take a look at this.
Beverly Hills Cop comes out. It was the #1 movie for 14 weeks. Oh, yeah. It doesn't exist anymore.
This is very embarrassing. Part of me rather get locked up than get put in this little Fisher-Price looking squad car. Y'all are the Lego cops.
What brings you back to 90210?
You're in a snowplow?
Yeah, we're in a damn snowplow. What's the problem? A lot of blind spots in the snowplow.
Well, Eddie Murphy is back, and he's back as Axel Foley, and they're even bringing back the Crazy Frog tune. So I am all for it. The nostalgia is real, and I am a big Eddie Murphy fan. So I'm really, enjoying the full revival, the renaissance of Eddie Murphy, as it were. And Beverly Hills Cop, Axel Foley, did drop on Netflix this week, and he's back solving crimes only as he can. John, you got to go see this movie, and by that I mean you just turned on your TV and popped on Netflix.
Yeah.
So, Engineer, you have muted yourself again, but there you go.
I know. No, I know. I keep talking shit, and karmically, I am still muted.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God damn it. No, so I was like, he didn't have to go anywhere. You just turned on Netflix. I turned this movie on with a friend, and then I turned it off, and we watched something else. That's what happened.
Yeah, because you have no taste in movies. Anyway, so when I watched this film with my parents, who are just as who introduced me to the Beverly Hills Cop franchise.
Naturally, you said you're watching it with your parents, and that does not support your case. I'm so sorry.
Okay, what? You don't love your
my
parents?
mom loves Lifetime movies. Like my mom.
So does my mom, but like that's like a mom
that's
thing.
Point.
Whatever.
That's like your parents
Whatever.
are not. I'm not exactly sure that they're going to be like the movie buffs of the century.
My dad.
I don't know how we got into this conversation. Let's.
But anyway,
let's talk about the movie itself.
Anyway. This was
John.
fucking great. Like, I'm the only one here who can actually judge the damn movie because I actually sat and watched it all the way fucking through and not just the first 5 minutes.
The script is so bad. The script is so bad that after the first action sequence, after the snowplow, like, fake laugh, you're kind of like, okay. So, like, I could watch something else right now. It is just so, does it pick up after the first 10, 15 minutes? Does it get better?
It gets better. Yeah, like this was a fun time. Like this.
I used to love Joseph Gordon-Levitt too when I was younger. Like I feel like I will try to watch this movie again because I do love Eddie Murphy. To be fair, I am not the person who was like, "Ew, what is this? We're turning it off." I was just kind of like watching it.
I mean, the thing is, you didn't
gauging that the situation is not great. Yeah,
you're not really aware of the franchise that much, and from what I've noticed, that the people. Because like when I was reviewing this a couple days ago with my with some friends of mine, the 3 people, which were me and 2 of my other friends, who grew up with the franchise, ended up absolutely loving it. And while the other guys who were like aware of it but didn't like love it, they were like, "Yeah, it was a good time, nothing great." Well, meanwhile, us 3 were like, "Oh my god, this was so much fun! Seeing Eddie Murphy back as Axel was so great." His interactions with all the older characters, Taggart played by John Ashton, Rosewood played by Judge Reinhold, and then you also had Bronson Pinchot as Sergey, and then who else was there? And then I think and then you had Paul Reiser as Jeffrey. They were all like, they all slipped back into their roles like a glove, a little bit older, a little bit more experienced, but this still felt like it still felt like a Beverly Hills Cop movie. Yeah, it's been 30 years since the last movie, exactly 30 years on the dot.
Well, because the first one came out in 1984.
Yeah, and then 40 years since the first one, so this has been in development hell for a while. This has been in development hell for at least 20 years, I think. Because I know
feel like this movie was like a good addition. You feel like it picked right back up in the perfect way that it should have. Like, do you really feel like this added to the storyline? Because I feel like so many of these movies, unfortunately, don't. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's so nice to see these characters again, but it's like, okay,
they do make sure to like give him new challenges. It's like what they do is like, it kind of reminds me of sort of a Top Gun Maverick. It's not nearly as good as Top Gun Maverick, but it like kind of has that vibe of like holding on and respecting the roots of the franchise, but doing some newer things. Like now what they do, they give him a kid, and that he has like a estranged and not great relationship with his kid, who's played by, I believe, Taylor Page is her name. She was okay. She was fine. Like, she was a little annoying at points, but I feel like she like kind of had the right to be, because he's not a good dad. So they do give him that like sort of like butting head sort of thing, and they do have like a good chemistry in that case. Kevin Bacon, the man just plays sleazy douche. It's just fucking perfectly, both in this and MaXXXine. I joked that that Kevin Bacon was in 2 movies that are 1980s throwbacks that are sequels to other films that take place in LA. So, you know, it very, and they come out the same week. And I'm like, that's interesting. But
there's enough overlap there that qualifies.
I think I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, I think all of them, I mean, it's just so funny to see this picture. Like John Ashton looks terrible and Judge Reinhold looks older, and then meanwhile Eddie Murphy looks exactly the same. Fucking, I mean, dude, black don't crack, man.
If you watch the first Beverly Hills Cop movie, he does look older, but not by much.
He looks like, I mean, his face has gotten like a little bigger, but like outside of that, like comparatively, like it's like Winston, what's his name? Ernie Hudson. Like all the other Ghostbusters look fucking decrepit, yet like Ernie Hudson has like aged like fine wine. Like all the like fucking Bill Murray looks like the Crypt Keeper. Meanwhile, fucking Ernie Hudson's a goddamn dilf. So like, you know, or a gilf in this case, but you know, it's just like black don't crack, man. I'm just saying, you know, and I just love, like, I felt that the comedy was really funny. I felt that it, you know, kept into the roots, doing some modern stuff, and it just did it. As I said this during my other review, and a lot of others agreed with me. To me, as a fan of this franchise, it was very satisfying, and it felt like a big, comforting hug from an old friend. That's what it felt like. It's not like a perfect movie, but to, I think, fans of the franchise, it will be like a perfect movie. You know, it just like, it hits all of those points. It hits all of those right beats, and it just feels very satisfying to watch. And Eddie Murphy just, like, I know he does a lot of bad movies, but when he fucking does a great movie, he fucking hits. Like,
so that's actually one of the critic reviews that I read too. It was like one of the critic reviews. The critic reviews on this movie are not very high, so I'll be honest about that. But it just says essentially, it's very obvious that Eddie Murphy has that twinkle back in his eye, and I think for a long time he didn't. Like, he was one of those actors that was working, but he lost something in the, I would say, probably from basically from Norbit on till recently. I feel like he was kind of.
I feel like Dolomite Is My Name was like showed like, oh yeah, Eddie Murphy, he can still act. Like that. Dolomite Is My Name was really good. That was
I feel like he kind of he checked out for a little bit, but people are saying like he's back, and so a lot of the critic reviews sort of mirror what you're saying. Like, Eddie Murphy carries the movie, but a lot of people are just shitting on the movie. It's like, come for Eddie Murphy, stay for Eddie Murphy, and basically nothing else. Like, it.
I wouldn't say totally, but again, that's just, I'm probably biased because I love this franchise so much.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, like, obviously newer people can give it a chance, but I mean, don't expect to like love this movie. If you're a fan of this franchise and like grew up with it and watched it as a kid, I would say you would pretty much really love this movie. If you're not, I would say maybe try to go back and watch the other movies because they're a lot of fun, and then maybe try to watch this one. But I just, again,
but you know, I think that's also something to say is I think it's really challenging to make a remake. Right now, the 90s are in, right? But like, to make a remake from a movie that was a hit in the 80s, or to add to that storyline, it is so hard to hit the same sort of formulaic beats as the 80s movies because it was such a specific kind of movie. Like, you had St. Elmo's Fire, you had this, I mean, there was like a very specific formula for 1980s movies that just doesn't really work today. And so in order to pay homage to that and bring it into the modern day, like, I feel like there's sort of a hard, it's kind of difficult to do that. Like, even Roadhouse didn't really hit the same way the 80s Roadhouse did, right? Like, it's just not, they had to completely remake the movie. they had to like completely bring it into a new storyline, and it still felt a little too forced because what went on in the 80s doesn't necessarily work in like PC modern day, you know? So they have a lot of challenges bringing back movies from the 80s, I think, in a lot of different ways.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I think a lot of it comes down to just how you go about the movie, like, and what your approach is to the franchise, how you balance, the nostalgia with telling a good story. This movie definitely leans a little heavy on the nostalgia. John, what were your favorite parts of the nostalgia elements? I think they brought back basically the whole soundtrack from the original movie.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
which of those songs did you really enjoy listening to again?
I gotta say, Pointer Sisters was pretty good. Like during the
Yeah.
snowplow chase scene, that was pretty good. But like hearing Axel F, I will say I loved hearing that theme again. I didn't really like the Lil
Oh,
Nas X
Crazy
remix.
Frog?
That was
Yeah.
pretty bad. But like I'm not really a big
Yeah.
rap guy, so I mean Lil Nas X, he's living his best life. Good for him.
Mhm.
But I just don't. Like just leave it as is. It was good as is. You don't need to try to remix it for like adding
And
shit in there that didn't matter.
what about this nod to Happy Gilmore?
Yeah, that was so funny because I remember watching the trailer and seeing him there, and then I forgot about it. And then when that scene showed up, I'm like, hey, it's Shooter McGavin. Holy shit. Which is even funnier considering that Happy Gilmore 2 is happening, I think, right? That they greenlit that, they confirmed that.
Oh
so
yeah, no,
like seeing him,
it's
and
also
then
happening on Netflix, and of course Adam Sandler's got a big deal with Netflix for that.
So is the Beverly Hills Cop universe in the Happy Gilmore universe now, or is this the crossover we need?
I don't know. I mean, is
Or
it
the
like
crossover we didn't know that we needed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
It's
and
possible.
I like Christopher McDonald. He just has, again, speaking of guys who are really good at playing sleazy douchebags, Christopher McDonald. He just plays a great villain.
He does. He absolutely does. I mean, and look, when we were talking about the movie's critic score, yes, it is struggling a little bit in that department because it's better than Despicable Me, which is
That's not saying
certainly
much.
Saying something.
it's a low standard,
No,
but at the same
that's
time,
kind of
65
saying something. Yeah.
65% is a good number. That what that essentially means is 65% of the critics out of the 150, let's say here, that reviewed it gave it a positive review. And even though a lot of the positive reviews are sort of middling, they do tell you that, hey, like John, you mentioned, if you're a fan of the franchise, you will enjoy this movie because it will give you everything you're looking for. Like, I think the best way you put it is like it feels like a hug from an old friend. And sometimes that's all we want. I mean, that's what my experience was when I was watching Top Gun Maverick. So like that's if you're a fan of Beverly Hills Cop, like I am a fan of Top Gun, then this is the movie for you. And with an 80% audience score, you could tell it's doing really well. For a movie that's on Netflix, I do wonder though, John, I asked you this question last week. So to kind of wrap this this whole review up, I want to ask you if you had the choice to put this movie out on streaming, having seen it now, or putting it out in a movie theater, which outlet would you choose?
I would say put it in a theater. I think this would have made a good amount of money. Maybe not like a ton, seeing the budget was like 150 million. So I don't know totally about that. But like again, I'm biased. I'm a fan. I would say put the shit in theaters, my guy. Absolutely. I know they would never, but that's just me. I would love to see this like on a big screen, especially the snowplow and the helicopter action chase scenes. Those would have been awesome to see in a theater, like most definitely. So
Yeah, and they shot a good chunk of that practically too, so like you can really see the scale in a way that feels very tangible. Like there's some CGI elements, I'm sure, but they had a real chopper on set. They were shooting that for real. You could see this. It just feels better when it's done practically because it feels more real. So yeah, with that said, guys, I mean, hey, it's a movie that's out there on Netflix. If you guys are interested, give it a watch. If you have already seen it, did you like it? Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the live chat. We love that we have Ron in the chat. We've got Fiona in the chat. We have got Horimobi. He's been watching the whole time. Really glad to have you guys out here. I know there's more of you guys watching or not commenting, but you're welcome to let us know what you think about Axel Foley in the comments, in the live chat. Hit the like button. That really helps us out with the channel as always. And subscribe if you're looking for more movie-related news because we're doing this each and every week. We have a DCU Daily episode coming up after the show. And as Fiona says there, maybe Happy Gilmore and Beverly Hills Cop is not the crossover we need, but it is the crossover we deserve, which I feel like she's trying to go for that whole Dark Knight thing. But anyway, with that, with that said, John, let's kind of switch focus right now. We do have another movie to review. So the last movie that we're going to review on today's show is a slasher horror film that kind of is a callback to the 80s. It is MaXXXine, Mia Goth is back in the latest iteration of a franchise that A24 has really just done a fantastic job of shepherding along, and now MaXXXine is enjoying record success for that franchise, and A24 just keeps on delivering. So I wanted to ask you here, John, because you went and saw it. I mean, Angelina, actually, I'll start with you instead, because you really wanted to go see this movie because you were like, between the three that are on offer, I'm just going to go check out this. I'm going to just watch MaXXXine. So you did.
Yeah.
What did you think about the film?
Well, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It was, it really nailed the 80s. Like, Mia Goth looks badass as an 80s like movie star. They got the cocaine, they got the hair right. She's like bleach blonde with a perm. The costumes were incredible. Elizabeth Debicki, Debicki, right? That's how you pronounce her last name. She killed it. I loved her. I loved her role. She played an Elizabeth, so they didn't really do much doing there. I feel like she was playing herself as a director of a movie. She was wonderful. Mia Goth is honestly a really exceptional actor. Walking into this movie, I had not yet seen the other two. So with that being said, I kind of like read up on it, and we just went in watching it as we needed to watch it. I think the plot line was really predictable. They introduced so few characters that you knew exactly who was going to die. The only thing that was shocking was that situation, like, the villain ends up, spoiler alert, ends up being her father, which I guess they had alluded to.
You did say spoiler alert.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I guess they had alluded to in the first movie.
Mhm.
I'm not in love with it. It was good for what it was. I would have preferred this be on streaming at home. I don't think this needed a movie theater. With that being said, it is the best, highest grossing movie of all three of them in the theaters.
Mhm.
I don't know if Mia Goth is going to be able to move past this, which actually makes me a little upset because she is a really exceptional actor. I walked in reading a lot of critic reviews saying like she is like a one-note horror actor. I don't think so. She basically plays like a freaking sociopath, and she's great. She kills it.
Yeah,
10 out of
she's
10.
great.
So
I would say her performance was better in Pearl. I would say try to watch all three back to back, because X, she was good. She was very good there, but it was more of an ensemble. And Pearl, that was Oscar worthy. Like, genuinely, she gives this monologue at the end of the movie that was like, it was just like, give her the fucking Oscar now. But it's like, oh wait, I forgot the Academy doesn't like horror movies, so looks like she's not getting that. So but she is an exceptional actress. She was great here. And what was so good about this is they really took the idea of like what would happen. It's like the aftermath of what would happen to a final girl. And it's someone who is never going to be a victim again. And I absolutely loved that. That was such like a great way to go. And yeah, it's a little predictable, but I feel like what I liked about this movie is that it did subvert a lot of slasher tropes to the point it's not really a slasher movie, I don't think. It's more of a character piece about her, about MaXXXine, hence why the name of the movie. It's about how MaXXXine survives, and it's just like it's her trying to achieve this dream, but there's like so much hindrance to that. Like, you have like the Night Stalker thing, you have what we eventually find out is her father, we have like all of this PI, also played by Kevin Bacon. There you go.
I loved him. He was
he was great.
Yeah,
and
she great.
Oh my god, I also want to mention Giancarlo Esposito. That man, I'm just like, thank fucking Christ Ty West actually gave him something to work with that isn't just Diet Gus Fring, because I'm so sick. I'm so sick of Esposito playing Diet Gus Fring ever since Better Call Saul ended. Like, this man is one of the most talented actors working today, yet people just keep giving him Gus Fring roles. Like how he was in the Gentleman TV show. He's just like, oh, he's just another meth empire kingpin. It's like, okay, great, boring.
Yeah.
But no, he plays a sleazy entertainment lawyer / agent.
I didn't really see it coming either. Yeah.
And even though he's barely in the movie, he fucking stole every scene he's in. He was great, especially with the scene towards the end of the film with Kevin Bacon and the car. That was great. So yeah, I think
I could have. And I kind of want to run this by you too, though. I could have so done without Halsey's cameo, like cast someone else.
She was pointless.
She was so literally so pointless, and her accent that she did was so thick that it felt like Halsey and Lily Collins like showed up in this movie just to have the most fun on set, and then they forgot that they were acting. It was like, oh, you're supposed to support the main storyline, not like just go have a golly good time. Like, Halsey's accent was so off the wall and so thick and so crazy. You actually couldn't understand half of her lines. And I was like, oh, she's going to a party. That's what she said. She's going to die. Okay, cool. Bye, Halsey. That was it. Like, I just didn't understand it.
I don't know Halsey very much, so I didn't really care. So that was
it just feels like another actor, like another musician that they're trying to make an actor, like Dua Lipa and Argyle. It's like, okay, why? Like, I don't get it. It didn't really do anything for me. Yeah. But actually, I liked the other guy. I forget his name. Leon.
His Moses Sumney, I think his name was, the actor's name.
So he's also a musician that they brought in. So I was a little confused as to why they brought in so many musicians on this. And obviously Lily Collins' father, Lily Collins is known for like her really bad Emily in Paris movie and a few other things. But her dad is,
My sister watched it. She's like, "Oh my god, it's so."
I can't. They're on like season 5, and I was like, I thought season 1 was bad.
My god, that show is still on. I thought that got canceled after season 2.
No,
that's depressing.
Yeah, no. Well, her dad is Phil Collins, right?
It's Phil Collins, so that's why that's her own show.
She but it's that too, because I do think she's a really good actor. Like, I think I saw this independent movie that she did years ago. It was like this independent rom-com, and it was so cute and it was so good, and it came off right after The Blind Side, and I liked her in The Blind Side too. Like, I just felt like she knew her role was like a supporting role, and she played her role. What I don't understand about actors is, like, you have to see how your character fits into the storyline, and if you can't play with that to the max that allows, then you're just taking away from the storyline. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of ruins the point of the whole movie. So I just didn't understand Lily Collins' role in this. Like, it just felt like kind of, I didn't get it. I didn't understand some of the cameos. It was just kind of stupid. I feel like there was some producer on this movie that had promised all of these actors to like work with them on something and put them in this movie. That's how I feel.
I guess so, but
I mean,
yeah,
the movie.
I love the aesthetic though. You were talking about the costumes and the hair and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, that was the best part of this movie. That's probably why I like it. I like it a little bit more than X, even though X is probably the better movie. I liked the aesthetic here. That was just so good, and
they did a really good job.
The gore was
with
great.
It.
The gore was awesome. I liked how it was used sparingly, but when it is used, it's like in your face to like, it's like, oh, it's like an 80s movie. But I also liked how they didn't go with like typical slasher tropes. I know a lot of people said that, like, oh, they fall into those tropes. I'm like, did you watch the movie? I'm like, literally, the whole point of this movie is to say fuck you to those tropes, because
I think that's actually not true. He's like,
the whole point of MaXXXine is like she's not a bitch. She's not a, like, she's a survivor, and she's like, I'm not going to be a victim again. Like, that's
I agree with that. But Ty West's whole move, like, I read up because I didn't see the first 2 movies. I did do a lot of research on it, and the horror movie that I have premiering at the movie, the director is such a horror hoe. Like, he wanted to direct this movie. So when I say during COVID, I took a deep dive into all of the OG slasher films before we started filming. This movie hits like almost all of those notes. And I guess every single movie is supposed to hit like a different subgenre of horror, which I see and I love, right? Great. I just feel like this wasn't really scary. It didn't have any of the typical jump scares. Like, there was nothing about this movie that was like scary. It wasn't really a horror movie.
It wasn't.
Like, it
and
was
I
like,
that.
Ew, gross. I do agree with you. It was a character piece for MaXXXine.
It was more of like a character piece mystery film than a
Yeah,
horror
like,
film.
oh,
And I
who
kind of
done
like
it?
that. Maybe because, like, I don't know, like, it was kind of like trying to bob and weave that sort of thing. But I kind of liked that. I like how they didn't like go like that typical thing. I'm not going to act like it's a perfect movie. I think, you know, the twist involving who the villain really is was very obvious. And I will say that the story was very kind of loosey-goosey a little bit. Like, it could have gotten, like, I feel like there could have been like another draft to make it like come together a little bit more, like a little bit tighter. Right. But I still really liked it. Again, I'm a horror nerd, as you can probably tell from the giant Evil Dead poster in the back. But I'm a big horror nerd, and I felt like this was just my bread and butter, even though I do believe that the two other films are probably better.
So that's also what I read in critics' reviews.
Yeah.
It was like, this is absolutely the weakest of all three of them, but it was
but it's
still
not bad.
Yeah, I mean, would I recommend it to anyone to like watch for a horror movie? No, but if somebody's like, "Hey, how was MaXXXine?" You'd be like, I mean, the costumes were cool. Like, it was like an okay watch. Like, I didn't hate it. It just wasn't great. Like, would I watch it again? No. There's what is the point? I'd go back and watch the first two just to.
In terms
was the
of
first
like,
one actually scary?
I would say it has some tension filled moments. The thing is, I'm kind of a bad person to ask because I've been so like inundated with horror movies that none of them really scare me that much anymore.
To it. Yeah.
So like I'm desensitized to it. So like I will say X, from what I remember, does have some like tension filled and creepy moments. Yeah. Pearl is just insane. Like which has, by the way, David Corenswet in it. That was the movie that made me realize, oh, this guy would be a good Clark Kent. So, you know, it works. And Mia Goth is so good in that movie. And yeah, so I do think that
I might go back and watch
Pearl,
the first two.
Yeah,
oh, you guys, I just got a sad alert that Joe Egan died, the Stuck in the Middle with You singer.
Oh. I'm sorry. I don't know who that
Stuck in
is.
the middle with you. You guys you don't know what that song is?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know
I
that.
was like,
once you sing it, like, yeah. I was like,
I was like, that's like one of his famous songs. It's just sad. Sorry guys, that was a brief segue. We just got there's all the news coming out today.
He's a Scottish legend. I mean, hey, any particular memories or favorite songs that you guys remember him for?
I'm not really familiar with that one. I'm not really familiar with him that much.
Well, I mean, hey, condolences out to his family and friends. One of the artists from out in Scotland. He had some music in Reservoir Dogs, it looks like. So yeah, but getting back to MaXXXine, I did want to mention something. We kind of set it up at the beginning of this review. MaXXXine essentially is in the third movie in a franchise where each movie has been made for less than $10 million. Mm-hmm. And it's gone to a point where it's just ridiculous how good A24 is at doing this, where they're able to like turn these small budgets into just incredible gains at the box office, something that bigger studios struggle with today. And you're getting to see this movie once again do the same thing, where you've got A-list actors and you've got a movie that has already gone off to a brilliant start at the box office, and it's going to easily make its money back and be profitable. I mean, John, do you think this is the kind of model that could be? I mean, horror movies are a great example of just you spend less money and you spend it wisely. You get creative with your limited resources, and then you make a ton of money at the box office, and therefore you are profitable. What do you think about the strategy here? Again, this is a franchise that doesn't make hundreds of millions of dollars, but it makes more than enough that it can keep going and probably for a very long time to come. it's made Mia Goth's career in a way that I don't think another franchise might have done so. It's certainly, given opportunities to, actors like Michelle Monaghan and Kevin Bacon. Of course, you got Bobby Cannavale there as well. And even if, Halsey has a cameo, but the fact that you got Halsey making a cameo, this isn't a movie. All I'm going to say is this is a movie that kind of punches above its weight class. And that's just great to see.
Yeah.
But yeah. I'm excited to see where we go from here with the franchise.
I mean, Ty West did say that they're working on a 4th movie, so and I'm stoked for that. I mean, they also said that Axel F is going to get a 5th movie, so
they said that this, from what I read, they said that this was actually going to be the final installment of this series. So
I think he's making, because I think what he's doing, he's making like a horror cinematic universe kind of thing where there's going to be another.
I don't know if it's going to be. This was supposed to be the final of this trilogy.
Yeah. But Ty West did say that there was going to be another movie in this world. Maybe not follow MaXXXine, but like follow, because there's nowhere to really go. Spoiler alert: she achieved everything. She got her dream. So
and now she's the murderer. Ta-da!
Oh wow! All right, and on that note,
as long as she doesn't bust more balls, then
Yeah.
Oh, that was nasty. I was like, whoa.
How do you think I feel? I'm the guy with balls. Hello. I was like, whoa, shit.
That is.
I didn't know those did that. I also didn't know she was
slasher credits. So,
I didn't know that Mia Goth was married to Shia LaBeouf. I didn't know that.
I guess so.
Y'all didn't know that either.
It definitely I did not
right?
know that either.
See, I'm like, oh god, they're a bunch of freaks. Their marriage must be wild.
Okay. And on that note, like and subscribe if you have seen the movie. Let us know what you think about it. If you have not seen the movie, hopefully this review gave you some insight into what it is all about and why maybe you should go check it out. So let us know in the comments below what you think about MaXXXine. It's out there in theaters. It's making lots of money. It's getting great reviews. Like and subscribe for more reviews like this. We're back here each and every week with more movie reviews. But right now, before we end the show, as we always do, we look ahead to the big movie of the week next week. And that, of course, is going to be Fly Me to the Moon. Fly Me to the Moon is a film that I first came across. I was like, wait, is this a parody? Is this a rom-com? What is it? And quite frankly, I still don't know what it is. So, Angelino, can you enlighten us a little bit, maybe? Do you have any idea what this movie is?
So what I read was it is a cute, what is the headline of this? Sorry, guys. I was like, this is what killed me. 5 Minute Moon Review. Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum fire in all cylinders in a screwy space-race rom-com. It seems like Scarlett Johansson is a marketing agent. She owns her own marketing agency. And she is faking landing on the moon to the whole of America. That's what it looks like.
So it definitely feels like an alternate history situation, right? Like that's kind of what it hints at, if anything.
But there are theories that we never actually landed on the moon.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's playing on there.
The only thing I know about this movie, I saw like a poster for it. I think I might have seen a TV spot for it. And a buddy of mine saw it and he said it sucked. That's all I know about it. So, oops.
Wow, you just trashed the movie before we even went to see it. That's great, John. It's a movie
Gotta keep them honest.
You gotta keep them honest. That's fair. They have it certainly tracks that review tracks because they haven't lifted the embargo for the reviews yet. So that's usually
a great sign. It's directed by Greg Berlanti. That makes sense. Okay. Now it's all come. Okay, now it's clear.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, cool. There we go.
You can have your rant, John.
Say anything else. That's it. Boom. That's all, folks. There we go. Okay.
You're not even gonna give it a chance. I mean, maybe it's good.
The guy who ruined like 10,000 DC superheroes. Let's not give him a chance. Anyway. That's all.
I mean, the reviews I've seen have ranged from good to terrible. Like it's something where, I mean, now here's the thing. I have not read like 100 reviews, so I don't know how many reviews are out there, but the ones I've seen, they do praise the chemistry of Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson.
Which is such a random pairing, because to me, that would just never make sense. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you see them, they come from opposite worlds. I feel like Scarlett Johansson was always more of like a character actor that then got more pulled into the Marvel universe and became like she was always really incredible, right? But she was kind of a niche actor. Like I remember her specifically from a lot of indie movies. She was always like hypersexualized, but she was always in like big movies.
Right.
This feels weird because Channing Tatum is like, to me, like a B-rate actor at best. That is
he's
just
gotten
famous.
much better over the years. Like he's definitely
he's
improved
really
his
just
acting
famous
ability.
for Magic Mike. Like everything else has been
but
terrible.
Jump Street. I mean, he's done the Jump
21
Street
Jump
franchise.
Street is
Jump
funny.
Street. We gonna jump in
21
your
Jump
ass.
Street
We're gonna
is
jump in your
funny
ass.
as
I'm
hell.
sorry. Okay.
My name is Jeff.
That movie still tracks. I will give that to you. I have nothing else to say after that.
21 and 22 Jump Street are excellent. I'm still pissed we didn't get that Men in Black crossover.
I'm so that they need to bring that franchise back. I don't know why they canceled it. I don't
funny.
Get it.
Well, probably because Jonah Hill lost all that weight. He's just not as funny anymore. I don't know. 22
Jump Street is probably the greatest comedy sequel of all time, in my opinion. It just does it so perfectly, and while at the same time they're satirizing the whole concept of a sequel.
Stuff in there.
Yeah.
I still remember going to see the first one in high school, and literally we didn't stop making jokes about that movie for years.
It's got one of the best end credit sequences, and probably one of the most expensive end credit sequences of all time. That, quite frankly, by itself should have just what contract dispute? Like what? Like. Was it Janko or like it's what did he call him?
All right, Janko. No, it's
Janko.
All right, Jackson. No, it's Janko. No,
Jackson, just Janko. Oh, sorry.
I feel like Jonah Hill is just genius, though.
Let's not get crazy here. But
it also makes me wonder, though, if Channing Tatum can sort of rise to the occasion if his counterpart is incredible. And Scarlett Johansson has proved herself to be like really incredible. So maybe it'll be fine. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think Channing Tatum deserves a win because he didn't get his Gambit movie, which I'm also really upset about.
Well,
I was upset about that too. I think he would have really.
He would have been perfect. Like he was kind of like what we were talking about with what was it, Lobo? Like Jason Momoa, perfectly cast as Lobo. Channing Tatum, perfectly cast as Gambit. Let's make it happen, guys. Come on.
It could still happen because ultimately the
Marvel's not going to use him. Come on. They're like, oh, this guy's perfect casting. Let's go with somebody else that you've never heard of.
Anyone else.
Well, hey, look, this is going to be the movie of the week next week, right? So we're going to go check it out. We're going to see just how good or bad it is. And then we'll make our judgment call. I mean, it is Greg Berlanti directed, and I'm sure John's going to have a great time with that.
I'm not watching this shit. What are you crazy?
Well, we'll have lots to talk about on DCU Daily, John, because we do have, of course, not only Superman's birthday, they shot quite a bit on the bridge out in Cleveland, so we're gonna dive into that. That's coming up later. But right now it's time to end the show. It's been a long show. We went through so many movie reviews, so much news out in Hollywood. As always, you guys are welcome to keep stopping back in. We do this every week. You're welcome to hit the like button. That really helps us out on the channel. Hit the subscribe button. That will let you know when we have a new video going up. And if you hit the notification bell, it will tell you when we go live. And so as always, guys, go out there, watch something movie related, come back to us, and then talk about it, because we're going to be here talking to you about it. Fly Me to the Moon, a movie of the week next week. And then I'm sure we'll have DCU news and whatever else is going on out there in the world of Hollywood. We'll bring that to you as well. Until then, Angelina and John, it's been great talking to you today. Bridget was here earlier, and we'll be back later on the channel with DCU Daily. So, guys, until then, Janko, whatever.
Janko.